The busy halls of Atlanta General Hospital buzzed with the usual morning activity. Lisa Thompson adjusted her nurse's badge and smoothed down her dark curly hair as she walked through the pediatric ward. At 32 years old, she had spent the last 8 years of her life caring for sick children, and she loved every minute of it. That Wednesday morning started like any other, but fate had different plans. The hospital had just started a new volunteer program where former patients would come back to support current patients. Lisa had been asked to help coordinate the program, adding one more responsibility to her already full plate. "Miss Thompson, the new volunteer is here," Sarah, the receptionist, called out. "He's waiting in the conference room." Lisa checked her watch. The volunteer was 15 minutes early. She liked that. Walking into the conference room, she saw a man in a wheelchair looking out the window. He turned around when he heard her footsteps, and their eyes met. "Hello, I'm James Richardson," he said with a warm smile that reached his friendly brown eyes. His wheelchair was sleek and modern, and he wore a crisp blue button-down shirt that complemented his light brown skin. "Nice to meet you, Mr. Richardson. I'm Lisa Thompson," she replied, noticing how he moved his wheelchair with smooth confidence. "Thank you for joining our volunteer program." "Please call me James," he said, wheeling closer to shake her hand. His grip was firm and warm. "And thank you for having me. This hospital helped me so much after my accident. I want to give back." Over the next hour, Lisa learned that James had been in a car accident 5 years ago that left him paralyzed from the waist down. He was 35 now, and instead of letting his disability define him, he had worked hard to rebuild his life. He spoke about his experience with such openness and humor that Lisa found herself laughing several times. "So, what made you want to volunteer specifically with children?" Lisa asked, genuinely curious. James's face softened. "Kids don't look at me with pity," he explained. "They're just curious about my cool wheelchair. Plus, I want to show them that being different doesn't mean life stops being beautiful." As weeks passed, Lisa found herself looking forward to the days when James volunteered. He had a special way with the children, making them laugh even during tough times. She watched him teach a young boy how to do wheelchair tricks, turning a scary hospital stay into an adventure. One day, Lisa was having a particularly hard day after losing a young patient. James found her in the break room, trying to hold back tears. "Sometimes it's okay to not be okay," he said quietly, offering her a tissue. "How you stay so positive?" Lisa asked, wiping her eyes. "After everything you've been through." James thought for a moment. "Life gave me 2 choices after my accident, bitter or better. I chose better." He smiled. "Plus, my mama would whoop my behind if I started feeling sorry for myself." Lisa couldn't help but laugh through her tears. That was the moment she realized James was more than just another volunteer. His strength wasn't just in his arms that powered his wheelchair. It was in his heart that chose to see the good in every situation. The other nurses started noticing how Lisa's face lit up whenever James arrived. Her friend Marie teased her during lunch one day. "Girl, I see how you look at him," Mary said, grinning. "I don't look at him any special way," Lisa protested, but she could feel her cheeks getting warm. "Mum," Marie hummed, unconvinced. "Just remember, the heart sees no color and no disability. It just sees love." Lisa rolled her eyes at her friend's words, but they stuck with her. She hadn't been looking for love, especially not with someone society might see as different. But as she watched James telling animated stories to a group of giggling children, their faces full of joy and hope, she realized that sometimes the best things in life come in unexpected packages. What she didn't know then was that this was just the beginning of a journey that would change both their lives forever. Sometimes the greatest love stories start in the most ordinary places, like a hospital conference room on a regular Wednesday morning. 3 months after they first met, Lisa and James were having lunch in the hospital cafeteria when he finally gathered the courage to ask her out on a real date. Lisa's heart skipped a beat, but before she could answer, her phone buzzed. It was her mother. "Mama, I'll call you back," Lisa said quickly. "You should take it," James smiled, understanding in his eyes. Family comes first. That evening, Lisa sat in her mother's kitchen, watching her stir a pot of Sunday gravy. Barbara Thompson was a strong woman who had raised Lisa and her 3 siblings alone after their father passed away. A disabled white man? Barbara's spoon stopped stirring. "Baby girl, Life is already hard enough being a black woman. Why make it harder? Lisa took a deep breath. Mama, James is mixed race, and his disability doesn't define him. You taught us not to judge people. Barbara sat down heavily. I just want life to be easier for you than it was for me. Sometimes the right path isn't the easy one, Lisa replied softly. Just meet him, Mama, please. Meanwhile, James was having his own family dinner. His younger sister Rachel watched him push food around his plate. You haven't stopped smiling for weeks, Rachel observed. It's that nurse, isn't it? James nodded, then shared his fears. What if I'm not enough for her? She deserves someone who can dance with her, run with her. Rachel reached across the table and squeezed his hand. The right person won't care about what you can't do. They'll love you for who you are. The following weekend, James invited Lisa to a wheelchair basketball game where he played. She watched in amazement as he moved with incredible speed and skill across the court. His team won, and his teammates celebrated by lifting him up on their shoulders. I didn't know you could play like that, Lisa exclaimed after the game. James grinned. There's a lot you don't know about me yet. Their first official date was at a small jazz club. James had called ahead to ensure accessibility, but when they arrived, the ramp was blocked by delivery boxes. Lisa saw the flash of frustration on James's face. Without hesitation, she walked up to the manager and firmly requested the boxes be moved. Within minutes, the path was clear. You didn't have to do that, James said quietly as they entered. Yes, I did, Lisa replied. We're in this together. The evening turned magical. They discovered they both loved old-school R&B, had a weakness for spicy food, and could talk for hours about everything and nothing. When James took her home, he hesitated before asking something that had been on his mind. Does it bother you, being seen with someone in a wheelchair? Lisa looked into his eyes. The only thing that bothers me is that question. I see you, James, not your wheelchair. Their relationship grew stronger, but so did the challenges. At a family barbecue, Lisa's uncle made an insensitive comment about James's disability. Before Lisa could respond, her mother surprised everyone. That's enough, Barbara said firmly. James is family now. She had seen how he treated her daughter, how he made her laugh, and how he was teaching her grandson about resilience. James faced his own battles. Some of his friends questioned whether Lisa truly accepted his disability or if she had a savior complex. But they didn't see how she treated him like any other man, challenging him, disagreeing with him, loving him. One evening, after a particularly tough physical therapy session, James felt discouraged. Lisa found him staring out his apartment window. I wish I could give you a normal life, he whispered. Lisa turned his wheelchair to face her. Normal is overrated. I want our life, the one we're building together. That night, as James lay in bed, he realized something important. The biggest barrier wasn't his disability or their different backgrounds. It was fear. Fear of not being enough, fear of what others thought, fear of the unknown. But with Lisa, those fears seemed smaller. She didn't try to fix him or change him. She simply loved him, wheelchair and all. And maybe, just maybe, that was all they needed. What neither of them knew was that their journey of breaking through barriers was just beginning, and the biggest surprises were yet to come. 2 years had passed since Lisa and James first met in the hospital conference room. During this time, James had been keeping a big secret from Lisa. 3 times a week, when he said he had business meetings, he was actually going to intensive physical therapy sessions. Dr. Martinez, his physical therapist, had been working with him on an experimental treatment. Your upper body strength is incredible now, she told him during one session. I think you might be able to stand for a few minutes with support. James's heart raced at these words. He had been planning to propose to Lisa, and now he knew exactly how he wanted to do it. I need your help, he told Sarah, the hospital receptionist who had been there the day he first met Lisa, and we need to keep it a secret. Over the next month, James worked with Dr. Martinez every day. The pain was intense, and there were times he wanted to give up. But every time he thought of Lisa's smile, he pushed harder. On a sunny Saturday morning, Lisa walked into the hospital's rehabilitation center, thinking she was there for a special volunteer appreciation ceremony. She noticed more people than usual. Her mother Barbara was there, James's sister Rachel, and many of the children they had helped over the years. What's going on? Lisa asked, confused. The children lined up, each holding a single rose. One by one, they handed their flowers to Lisa, each sharing a memory of how she and James had helped them. "You showed me I could still play basketball from my wheelchair," said Tommy, a 12-year-old patient. "You taught me that being different is beautiful," added Maria, a young girl with leg braces. By the time Lisa reached the end of the line, she was holding 20 roses and fighting back tears. That's when she saw James in the center of the room, next to his wheelchair. Slowly, with the help of 2 parallel bars that had been set up, James began to rise from his wheelchair. Lisa's hands flew to her mouth. The room fell silent except for the soft whirring of medical equipment. James's arms shook with effort, but he managed to stand, supported by the bars. It was the first time Lisa had ever seen him at his full height. Tears streamed down her face as she watched the man she loved accomplish something he had worked so hard for. "Lisa Thompson." James's voice was steady despite his physical strain. "When I first met you, I was afraid to let anyone too close. I thought my disability would always be a wall between me and true love." He paused, taking a breath. Sweat beaded on his forehead from the effort of standing. "But you never saw walls, only bridges. You never saw limitations, only possibilities. You taught me that love isn't about what a person can or can't do. It's about who they are in their heart." Rachel stepped forward and handed James a small box. With trembling hands, he opened it to reveal a beautiful engagement ring. "I can't kneel down," James said with a small laugh that made everyone smile through their tears. "But I can stand up to ask you this question. Will you marry me?" Lisa walked forward, her legs shaking almost as much as James's arms. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes." The room erupted in cheers as Lisa slipped on the ring. James slowly sat back in his wheelchair, exhausted but beaming. The children threw rose petals, and Barbara hugged them both, crying happy tears. Later that evening, at a small celebration dinner, Lisa couldn't stop looking at James in wonder. "How long have you been working on standing?" she asked. 6 months, he admitted. "I wanted to show you that I'll always keep trying to be better for you." Lisa shook her head. "You didn't need to do that to prove anything to me." "I know," James smiled. "That's exactly why I wanted to do it." As they celebrated with their families, both Lisa and James knew this was just the beginning of their journey together. The proposal had been a surprise, but the biggest surprise of all was still waiting at the bridal shower, a secret that would change their lives forever. That night, as James watched his fiancée laughing with their families, he thought about the other secret he was keeping, the one about his company, the one that would be revealed at the bridal shower. He smiled to himself, knowing that life's greatest gifts often come in unexpected packages. Wedding planning brought new challenges and joys for Lisa and James. One sunny morning, they sat in their favorite coffee shop, surrounded by bridal magazines and venue brochures. Lisa noticed how James approached each detail with the same attention he gave to navigating life in his wheelchair. "We need to check every venue for proper ramps and elevators," James said, marking items on his iPad, "and wide enough doorways for the wedding party." Lisa watched him with admiration. Before meeting James, she never realized how many places weren't truly accessible. Now, she saw the world through different eyes. Their first venue visit was disappointing. The historic mansion was beautiful, but the only ramp was at the back entrance, near the dumpsters. "I'm sorry, but no," Lisa told the venue manager firmly. "My future husband isn't coming through the back door on his wedding day." James squeezed her hand, grateful for her understanding. The fifth venue they visited was perfect, a modern garden space with elegant accessibility features seamlessly built into the design. The owner's daughter used a wheelchair, so he had made sure everything was accessible without looking medical or institutional. "This is it," they said at the same time, then laughed. Planning the first dance brought its own challenges. James had been practicing in physical therapy, but standing for a full song wasn't possible yet. Lisa suggested they both use wheelchairs for the dance. "What do you mean?" James asked, surprised. "Well, you're the expert at wheelchair dancing," Lisa grinned. "Time to teach me your moves." They practiced in their living room, Lisa learning to spin and glide in a borrowed wheelchair. Sometimes they bumped into furniture, laughing so hard they had to stop. Lisa's 13-year-old daughter, Keisha, recorded their practice sessions, adding funny commentary. "You two are so weird," Keisha said, but she was smiling. She had grown close to James, especially after he helped her with a science project about adaptive technology. The guest list brought its own complications. Some of James' relatives hadn't spoken to him much since his accident, treating disability like something shameful. But Lisa's mother, Barbara, surprised everyone by calling these relatives herself. "You're missing out on knowing an incredible man," she told them, "and that's your loss." One evening, while reviewing wedding plans, Lisa found James in his home office, quickly minimizing something on his computer screen. "What was that?" she asked curiously. "Just some work stuff," he said casually. "Hey, what do you think about purple and silver for our colors?" Lisa knew he was hiding something, but she trusted him. What she didn't know was that he was working on his secret tech company, developing software that would help other disabled individuals gain more independence. The most touching moment came when they went to pick out their wedding rings. The jeweler started speaking only to Lisa, ignoring James. "Excuse me," Lisa interrupted, "but my fiancé is the one with excellent taste. You should be showing these to him." The jeweler looked embarrassed and quickly changed his approach. James selected a unique design, 2 different colored metals woven together. "Like us," he explained, 2 different stories coming together to make something beautiful. As the wedding day got closer, they faced questions from well-meaning but clueless people. "Will he be in the wheelchair for the ceremony?" some asked. "How will you do the honeymoon?" Others. 2 months before the wedding, Lisa sat at her kitchen table watching her daughter Keisha and James work on homework together. The scene before her was something she never expected when she first started dating a man in a wheelchair. "So if you multiply these numbers first," James was explaining, pointing at Keisha's math homework with a patient smile. "Oh, now I get it." Keisha's face lit up. She had struggled with math all year, but James had a way of making it make sense. "You're way better at explaining this than my teacher, James." The relationship between James and Keisha hadn't always been this smooth. When Lisa first told her daughter she was dating someone in a wheelchair, Keisha had been confused and worried. "But how will he play basketball with me?" she had asked. "Or teach me to drive when I'm older?" Instead of making promises he couldn't keep, James had been honest with Keisha from the start. "I might not be able to play standing basketball," he had told her, "but I can teach you some awesome wheelchair basketball moves that will impress all your friends." True to his word, James had taken both Lisa and Keisha to his wheelchair basketball practices. Keisha now proudly wore his team jersey to school and had even started volunteering at the youth wheelchair sports program. One evening, after Keisha went to bed, Lisa found James in the living room, looking at old family photos on his laptop. "These are from before the accident," he said quietly. "My family used to have big gatherings every month. After I got hurt, everything changed. Some of them couldn't handle seeing me different." Lisa sat beside his wheelchair and took his hand. "Their loss," she said firmly. But things were slowly changing. James's wealthy parents, who had distanced themselves after his accident, started making efforts to reconnect. It began when his mother, Eleanor, saw a video Keisha had posted online of James teaching her wheelchair basketball. Eleanor Richardson showed up at their door one Sunday afternoon, holding a casserole dish and fighting back tears. "I've been wrong," she admitted. "I was so focused on what my son had lost, I couldn't see everything he had gained. Can we start over?" The healing wasn't instant, but it was real. Eleanor started coming over regularly, getting to know Lisa and Keisha. She even defended James and Lisa against some relatives who made ignorant comments about their relationship. "My son found a woman who loves him for who he is," Eleanor told them. "And if you can't see how beautiful that is, that's your problem." Lisa's family had their own journey of acceptance. Her younger brother Marcus initially struggled with the idea of having a disabled brother-in-law. But after James helped him fix his car using some creative problem-solving techniques, Marcus gained a new respect for him. "Man, you know more about engines than I do," Marcus had exclaimed. "How'd you learn all this from a wheelchair?" "Same way anyone learns anything," James replied with a grin. "YouTube tutorials and lots of practice." The biggest surprise came from Lisa's mother, Barbara. She had been skeptical at first, but now she was James's biggest supporter. She regularly brought over her famous sweet potato pie and had learned how to properly fold his wheelchair when they went out together. One day, Barbara pulled Lisa aside after a family dinner. "Baby, I was wrong about him," she said. That man loves you and Keisha something fierce, and he's teaching all of us about what real strength looks like. As their wedding day approached, both families came together to help with preparations. James's sister Rachel and Lisa's sister Tanya became close friends, working together on the bridal shower plans. They had no idea they were helping set up what would become one of the biggest surprises of Lisa's life. What touched Lisa most was how Keisha had transformed. One night, she overheard her daughter on the phone with a friend. "Yeah, my soon-to-be stepdad uses a wheelchair," Keisha was saying. "So what? He's the smartest person I know, and he makes my mom really happy. That's all that matters." Lisa wiped away tears as she wheeled James's chair toward their bedroom that night. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" he asked. "For showing us that family isn't about what you can or can't do. It's about love." Little did Lisa know, James had one more surprise that would show just how much he loved his new family. The bridal shower was approaching, and with it, a revelation that would change everything. Every morning, after Lisa left for her nursing shift, James would wheel himself into his home office and lock the door. For the past 2 years, he had been keeping a huge secret from everyone except his best friend Michael, who helped him start his technology company. "The investors loved your presentation," Michael said during their video call. "They're offering $50 million for 40% of the company." James leaned back in his wheelchair, still stunned by the news. His software, designed to help disabled people control their homes through voice commands and eye movements, was worth more than he ever imagined. "I still haven't told Lisa," James admitted. "I wanted her to love me for me, not for what I could give her." Michael shook his head. "Man, that woman loved you when she thought you were just a hospital volunteer. But you need to tell her before someone else does. The tech blogs are starting to notice us." James had started the company from his bedroom 3 years ago, before he met Lisa. After his accident, he had struggled with simple tasks like turning on lights or adjusting the thermostat. So he taught himself programming and created a solution. Alexa and other systems weren't designed with disabled people in mind. He explained in his investor pitch. "Our software understands the unique needs of people with different abilities." The company, called EnableTech, had grown quietly but steadily. James hired other disabled programmers to work remotely, giving them chances that other companies wouldn't. What started as a simple idea had become a mission to change lives. One afternoon, Lisa almost discovered the truth. She came home early from work and found James on a video call with his team. "And the facial recognition software needs to be more sensitive to different." James quickly muted himself when he saw her. "What was that about?" Lisa asked curiously. "Just some volunteer work," James said, feeling guilty about the lie, but the bridal shower was only 2 weeks away. He had planned to reveal everything then. That evening, James called his sister Rachel, who was helping plan the surprise. "Everything's ready," Rachel assured him. "Lisa has no idea. But brother, are you sure you want to do it this way? It's a lot to take in at once." James looked at a photo of Lisa and Keisha on his desk. "They deserve to know the whole truth. And I want to announce our foundation at the same time." The foundation was James' real pride and joy. He had decided to use half of EnableTech's profits to help other disabled people start their own businesses and fund research into new technologies. The next day, during dinner, Keisha asked James an innocent question that almost made him reveal everything. "How come you work in your office all day if you're just doing volunteer stuff?" she asked. Lisa looked up, also curious. James felt his heart race. "Sometimes volunteer work takes a lot of organizing," he said carefully. It wasn't exactly a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. Later that night, James couldn't sleep. He wheeled himself to the window and looked out at the city lights. He thought about his journey, from the angry young man he'd been right after his accident to the successful entrepreneur he was now. "Can't sleep?" Lisa's voice came from behind him. She walked over and sat in his lap, something she often did when they talked. "Just thinking about how lucky I am," he said, holding her close. "We're the lucky ones," Lisa replied, kissing his cheek. "You've changed our lives in so many ways." If only she knew, James thought. The software company was now worth more than he could have dreamed. The foundation would help thousands of people, but his greatest achievement was right here in his arms. The love of a woman who chose him when he had nothing to offer but himself. In his office drawer lay an envelope that would change everything. Inside were documents showing EnableTech's value, the the foundation's plans, and a letter he had written to Lisa explaining why he had kept it secret for so long. The bridal shower was just days away. Soon, James wouldn't have to hide anymore. Soon, he could show Lisa and Keisha that their faith in him had helped him create something extraordinary. But for now, he held his fiancée close, grateful for these last few days of being loved simply for who he was, not what he owned. The bridal shower was held at Eleanor Richardson's elegant home on a beautiful Sunday afternoon. Lisa walked in to find the house decorated in purple and silver, their wedding colors. What she didn't know was that this day would change her life forever. "You look beautiful, baby," Barbara, Lisa's mother, said as she pinned a corsage on her daughter's dress. Lisa smiled, watching her daughter Keisha help James's sister Rachel arrange gift tables. James had insisted on attending the bridal shower, breaking tradition. "Some traditions need to change," he had said with a mysterious smile. Now he sat in his wheelchair near the front of the room, looking nervous but happy. "Time for games?" Rachel announced, but James wheeled forward. "Actually," he said, his voice shaking slightly, "there's something I need to do first." The room fell silent. Eleanor stepped forward with a large envelope tied with a purple ribbon. Lisa's heart began to race as James took the envelope. "Lisa," James began, "for the past 2 years, I've been keeping something from you, not because I didn't trust you, but because I needed to know that your love for me was just for me." He handed her the envelope. With trembling fingers, Lisa untied the ribbon and pulled out several documents. As she read, her eyes grew wide. "Enable Tech, $50 million, Foundation for Disabled Entrepreneurs," she whispered, looking up at James in shock. "After my accident," James explained to the silent room, "I couldn't do simple things like turn on lights or adjust my thermostat, so I created a solution. That software grew into Enable Tech, a company that makes life easier for people with disabilities." Tears rolled down Lisa's cheeks as she continued reading. James went on, his voice growing stronger. "The company is now worth $50 million, but that's not the most important part." He wheeled closer to Lisa. "We're using half of all profits to start a foundation. It will help other disabled people start businesses and fund research for new adaptive technologies." Lisa's hands shook as she pulled out the last item, a journal. Opening it, she recognized James's handwriting. "This is my diary," James said softly. "I started writing it the day I met you. Every page shows how I fell more in love with you and Keisha each day." He turned to address their families and friends. "Everyone here probably thought Lisa was amazing for loving someone in a wheelchair. But the truth is, her love made me stronger. Strong enough to build something that will help thousands of people." Keisha, who had been quiet until now, suddenly ran to James and hugged him. "You're like a superhero," she exclaimed, making everyone laugh through their tears. Barbara walked over to James, placed her hands on his shoulders, and said what everyone was thinking. "You never needed money or success to be worthy of my daughter's love. But what you're doing with your success, that shows the kind of man you truly are." Lisa finally found her voice. "All this time, in your home office?" "Yep," James grinned. "Running a tech company. Those volunteer meetings were actually investor calls and team meetings. I'm sorry I couldn't tell you sooner." "But why tell me at the bridal shower?" Lisa asked. Rachel stepped forward with another surprise, a small remote control. "Because your wedding gift is ready," she said, pressing a button. A video played on the large TV screen, showing a new rehabilitation center being built. The sign read, "The Thompson Richardson Center for Adaptive Technology and Rehabilitation. Our first foundation project," James explained. "A place where people can learn to use adaptive technology and get physical therapy, regardless of their ability to pay." Lisa fell to her knees beside James's wheelchair, overwhelmed with emotion. "I fell in love with a hospital volunteer in a wheelchair," she said through happy tears, "and he turned out to be a secret tech genius with a heart of gold." James cupped her face in his hands. "No, I was always just me. You loved me when I had nothing. Now I can spend the rest of my life showing you that your love made everything possible." As their families celebrated around them, Lisa realized this wasn't just a bridal shower revelation. It was the beginning of an even bigger adventure. And in 1 week, at their wedding, there was still one more surprise to come. The wedding day dawned bright and clear. At the modern garden venue, Everything was perfect, from the wheelchair-accessible aisles decorated with purple and silver flowers to the specially designed altar where James and Lisa would say their vows. In the bridal suite, Lisa stood in her beautiful white dress while her mother Barbara adjusted her veil. A week had passed since the bridal shower revelation, but it still felt like a dream. "I still can't believe James built a whole company in secret," Keisha said, wearing her junior bridesmaid dress proudly. "Baby, that man would move mountains for you and your mama," Barbara smiled, hugging her daughter. And speaking of James, he has one more surprise. In the groom's room, James sat in his wheelchair while his best friend Michael helped him with something the guests couldn't see, a lightweight, experimental exoskeleton hidden under his tuxedo pants. "The engineers worked overtime to get this ready," Michael said, making final adjustments. "Are you sure you want to try this? Everyone would understand if you stay in your chair." James shook his head. "I've been practicing for months. I want to stand with Lisa for our first dance." The ceremony began. Guests gasped in delight as Keisha walked down the aisle, spreading purple rose petals. Then the music changed, and everyone stood as Lisa appeared. James felt tears in his eyes as he watched his bride approach. She was more beautiful than ever, but what moved him most was the love shining in her eyes. The same love she'd shown when he was just a hospital volunteer. They had written their own vows. Lisa went first. "James, when I first met you, people said I was brave for loving someone in a wheelchair. They were wrong. The brave one was you, brave enough to love completely, to dream big, to change the world. You've shown me that love has no limitations." Then it was James's turn. His voice shook with emotion. "Lisa, you and Keisha had accepted me when I thought I had nothing to offer. Your love gave me strength to build something bigger than myself. I promise to spend every day showing you that our love can move mountains." After they were pronounced husband and wife, the celebration moved to the reception. That's when James prepared for his final surprise. As the DJ announced their first dance, James wheeled to the center of the dance floor. Lisa walked over, expecting to dance with him in his wheelchair as they had practiced. But James pressed a hidden button on his chair. Slowly, with the help of the experimental exoskeleton his company had helped develop, he rose to his feet. Gasps filled the room. Lisa's hands flew to her mouth. Keisha jumped up and down, shouting, "Look at James, he's standing." "May I have this dance, Mrs. Richardson?" James asked, holding out his hand. Tears streaming down her face, Lisa stepped into his arms. The exoskeleton helped James stay steady as they swayed to their song, "At Last" by Etta James. "This is what you've been working on in physical therapy," Lisa whispered. James nodded. Enable Tech partnered with a medical company. This prototype could help thousands of people. But tonight, it's just helping me dance with my wife. As they moved slowly around the dance floor, their families watched with joy. Barbara and Eleanor held hands, both crying. Keisha recorded everything on her phone, planning to share it on the Enable Tech website to inspire others. Later that night, as they cut their cake, James looked around at their gathered loved ones. His parents, who had once pulled away, now stood proud. Lisa's family, who had once been skeptical, now cheered the loudest. And Keisha, who had worried about having a disabled stepfather, now bragged about her tech genius dad. "What are you thinking about?" Lisa asked her new husband. "About how life's biggest surprises come in unexpected packages," James replied. "A nurse who saw past my wheelchair. A teenager who became my daughter. A company that could help others like me. And now, a future filled with endless possibilities." Lisa kissed him softly. "Ready for our next adventure?" "With you," James smiled. "Always." As they celebrated into the night, surrounded by love and joy, both Lisa and James knew that their story wasn't just about a black woman who married a disabled man. It was about two people who saw past society's labels to find something beautiful. It was about family, acceptance, and the power of love to transform lives. Their story would inspire others, but for Lisa and James, the greatest adventure was just beginning, their life together.